Welcome back to Around the Clock Affordable Housing Special. We move from our rental unit discussion to purchase units. I have with me Steve Greenberg again from the Affordable Housing Trust.
Hello again.
Steve, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
And Maureen O'Hagan from MCO Housing Services, and she is here to talk to us about units that are going to be coming available at Village of the Americas. Maureen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So Maureen, let's jump right in. Village of the Americas, affordable units, go.
We have Village of the Americas is a property large development that is continuing to build units. We are now, we have 16 affordable 2-bedroom units remaining. We are setting up for the lottery this week for the first 8 of those 16 units. Each unit is 1,770 square feet. 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths. They all have a tandem garage, meaning 1 garage space for 2 car parking. Okay. And the units will all be distributed by lottery. 75 of the 8 units will be for applicants who meet the local preference criteria, and the remaining 3 is open to everybody. Local applicants have the advantage of being in both the local pool and the open pool. So they have 2 opportunities for a unit, whereas if there are applicants that don't meet the local preference, they only have 1 opportunity for a unit. 5 of the units are ready for, will be ready to close 60 to 90 days after signing of the purchase and sale agreement. So they are all started to be worked on. Mm-hmm. And they'll all be distributed by lottery. The lottery has eligibility criteria. 1 is each buyer must be a first-time home buyer, which is defined as not having owned a home as a principal residence or in a trust for 3 years. Okay. There are exceptions to that. The main exceptions I work with, it would be if you're 55 or older, you don't need to be a first-time home buyer. Okay. And also if you are a displaced homemaker, which is typically defined as if you are married and going through a divorce and you owned a home and then the home was sold as a result of the divorce. Okay. You would be considered a first-time homeowner again as long as that home is sold. It can't be in the process, it has to be sold. Mm-hmm. Again, income limits. As they spoke earlier, it's 80% of the median income, and the income limits would be $48,800 for 1 person, $55,800 for 2 people living in the unit, $62,750 for 3 people living in the unit, and then $69,700 if there's 4 people living in the unit. Okay. So the income limits are based on household size. So everyone in there who's earning an income, with some exceptions, for example, if you have a full-time college student, mm-hmm. we don't count their income over $400, I think, if they are a full-time student and dependent on the parent's tax return. Okay. And then the final eligibility criteria is the asset limit. Each buyer is limited to $75,000 in assets, and that would include the average balance in checking accounts, current savings, stocks, bonds, money markets, CDs.
Retirement accounts.
We do look at retirement accounts, but sometimes they may not be looked at their full value. Mm-hmm. They may only be a partial value depending on where the money is. Okay. And we can, talk with people on an individual basis to determine that for them.
Okay. And these units are just mixed in with the other units that are up at the Village of the Americas?
They are distributed equally throughout the development. The criteria that any developer in Massachusetts that's working under a 40B permit is you cannot tell the difference between an affordable and market rate home if you're driving down a street. Okay. You will find some differences on the interior of the units. For example, instead of granite countertops in the kitchen, you'll have Formica. Instead of, here they're getting tiles in the bathroom and kitchen. There's carpet throughout the remainder of the home. Mm-hmm.
Gas inserts, wouldn't have a gas insert.
There's no fireplace. You don't get a garage door opener.
Okay.
You have just a regular manual open. You can get that installed after. Okay. And it also doesn't include air conditioning. You have all the piping and whatever lines are there, but you would need to purchase and pay to have someone install it, the condenser, which they would do on their own.
Okay.
And they have. And what's nice, even though it's not included, when people buy affordable units, there's always a question, can I do anything in the unit? And I always tell people, if you wanted to put in granite countertops down the road, or you wanted to put in hardwood floors down the road, those kind of things are for your enjoyment, meaning it's not going to increase the value of your home when and if you ever chose to resell. But capital improvements are considered on resale. And adding air conditioning to the house is considered a capital improvement by DHCD. So they would be able to see some of that money back on resale.
So I guess, Steve, I want to ask you a couple of questions in
Sure.
relationship to this. So this is now a purchase, and I know our Affordable Housing Trust works with Fafford and the management company so that when these units go to get sold, we have an ability to keep them as
Keep them in the affordable inventory, exactly.
So it's one of those things, again, this is considered a 40B project.
Yes.
But,
Well,
or is this not a true 40B?
This is not a true 40B. This is what is referred to as a local preference or a LIP.
Lip.
And this went to town meeting a number of years ago where we had talked about Ashland Woods, the rental project.
Right.
That's a 40B, so 25% of that development is deemed affordable.
Okay.
Here in this project as a LIP, 1 out of every 10 or 10% of the units that the Fafford company's built will be sold as affordable.
Okay.
So with that being said, those units will have a deed restriction as compared to the market units, so that these affordable units will stay as affordable in perpetuity or forever, whichever is longer. So I don't know if you want to talk about the deed restriction.
Well, the deed restriction is a legal binding document. Every home buyer will have to sign it at closing. We provide copies of it prior to, so they can review it with their attorneys and understand what they're getting into. The deed writer will determine how the unit is priced on resale. So people always say, I don't want to buy an affordable unit because I'm not going to make any money. Well, that's not necessarily true.
Okay.
When you buy a unit, a resale price multiplier is determined at the time you purchase, and that's taking the purchase price and dividing it by the median income. And you get 1.8, 1.9, whatever the number may be. So when you go to sell, you take that number and you multiply it by the median income at the time you sell.
Okay.
So if the median income has gone up, you will make a profit. If the median income stays the same, the home will be sold for what you paid for it.
Okay.
If the median income goes down, the home will be for what you paid for it. So you're never going to lose any money
Okay.
on the sale of the home. If you have to sell it in a hurry, you could accept less, but it's never going to be price less.
Okay.
Added to the price that you get as the seller to walk away with is a resale fee, a 2% resale fee. And that is paid to the real estate agent or broker or lottery agent who's going to sell the home for you. So when you go to sell your home, you're not paying broker fees. So unlike your traditional sale, you're paying a 5% broker fee to a realtor. You
Right.
don't do that in an affordable sale.
Okay.
And what's nice with the deed writer is, yes, the homes have to be sold to an affordable buyer that meets the same eligibility criteria we discussed earlier.
Right.
But it also allows, if we're unable to find an eligible buyer in a reasonable period of time, which I believe is 90 days, then the unit can be sold to an ineligible buyer, typically between 80 and 120% of median, or maybe it's someone slightly over they may not be a first-time home buyer,
Okay.
or someone slightly over the asset limit. With approval from the monitoring agent, in this case, the Department of Housing and Community Development, we would be able to sell that unit to an ineligible buyer. But our goal is always to sell to an eligible buyer. But no matter how it's sold or who it's sold to, that affordable deed writer will always stay in place.
So that's been one of the advantages of having the Affordable Housing Trust.
Right.
Everything that Maureen has said is absolutely true, but the trust has been funded by Community Preservation Act's dollars, I think back in 2008. So there is a lump sum in the trust. So if a homeowner, I mean, the way it's worked in Ashland forever, whether it's affordable or not, young people will move into the two-bedroom units. They'll have their first child, and that's great. Then when they have the second child, it starts to get a little crowded. Time to go buy a single family. So we see this many, many times where they're ready to go, but because it's, you need someone with expertise like Maureen to resell that existing unit for you. So what the trust has been able to do is step in as an intermediary, pay the existing affordable homeowner, and this has been set by DHCD, we pay them what they paid for the unit, and this was even in bad times. So when the market was way down, and people in a traditional home, market home, were underwater, where their mortgage and their sales price, there was quite a difference. The Affordable Trust was able to step in, and if these folks had paid $173,500, for example, the trust was able to pay them the $173,500. They get their money or pay off their existing mortgage
Right.
at closing, and then move on to buy their new home. So not all towns do it that way. We here in Ashland are fortunate that the monies are there to help, and it's a bit of a complicated process. As Maureen, we talked a little bit off camera, where even in traditional real estate, but I think in this kind of a sale, there's a lot of social work that goes on with just
Right.
holding
Well,
people's
you're
hand.
dealing with first-time home buyers who
Yeah.
don't have the experience of, they have no clue what they need to do. They
Right.
learn, and they're, they're like sponges, they soak it all up, but they have a lot of questions. So it's not as simple as just handing them an application. They still need to get a mortgage pre-approval. And they ask, where should I go? And are there programs out there for first-time home buyers, which we talk about with them and try to, give them options of where to go to get mortgages. But it's not a simple process.
Yeah.
Because people are nervous or excited or desperate, depending, it can be
Right.
multiple things. So part of the job, for me, I enjoy it, is educating people. We talk to as many people that are ready to buy as many people that aren't. So we kind of, we educate them on, if you're not ready now, you don't make enough, or your credit's not good.
Right.
And the lenders we work with will always take the time and educate them on how to improve their credit. And so they're in a position to buy the next go round, because not everybody is. But we'll talk to everybody, and hopefully when they get off the phone, they're either ready to apply or at least know what steps they need to take to be in a position to buy the next opportunity something comes up that they're interested in.
And Steve, going back to what you were just talking about, how our Affordable Housing Trust can then purchase these units, it helps keep our affordable numbers a little bit higher.
It does.
Rather than, as Maureen was saying, if you don't find someone who can buy it within the 90 days, it then becomes a market rate unit.
Yeah, it's still deed restricted, but it complicates the numbers, and the key is to keep them as affordable as possible in perpetuity. One of the complications, not only the credit and the income, but the financing. Maureen, I know there are a few lenders out there that specialize in this kind of financing, the local banks. Every mortgage broker might say, oh yeah, I can do that kind of loan, but...
Yeah, we tend to encourage buyers to use local banks versus mortgage brokers.
Okay.
And I don't have a problem with mortgage brokers. A lot of them
Right.
are really very good at what they do. But when you add the deed restriction in, if they're not a local and the underwriters are in Iowa, they have no
Right.
idea what the deed writer is.
So
And
keeping
it's
the whole
best to keep
process
it
local
local.
is a very
Yes.
positive
Yeah.
thing.
Absolutely.
There are two programs I always recommend to buyers. One is called the One Mortgage Loan, which is through the Massachusetts Housing Partnership. And that is 3% down payment. You do not pay PMI. The interest rate is below market rate. Right now I'm dealing with a lender sale, and they're paying 3.5 for the One Mortgage program. And the minimum credit score is 660. And the other program that a lot of buyers will use is through Mass Housing, which it's the same 3%, but you tend to pay a higher interest rate than you do through the MHP program.
So I think if buyers come through in this first round of 8 units and they meet with you and you go over the qualifications, if they don't meet, be it the income or the credit, they're going to have an opportunity to improve on both while we're waiting for the next round of 8 to come around.
Yeah. And the question we always get is what's the minimum income? And the minimum income is the minimum you need to earn for your lender to
Okay.
give you a loan.
Okay. Well, Maureen, it sounds again like some exciting things. It's nice to be adding to our affordable
Yes.
housing stock here in Ashland. It's something we're always working on, and so you're starting to promote that now, the week of April 13th, for those first 8 units. And then we look forward to hearing about the other 8 units in the future.
Yes, and I don't think I said the price. The price is $179,500.
You did not.
It'd be awful, but it's $179,500.
Okay. Well, Maureen, thank you for coming
Thank
to
you. It's
Around the
been
Clock.
wonderful.
Maureen.
Thank you.
Steve, thank you for helping me
My
out with
pleasure.
this affordable housing special.
Pleasure.
Well, that's been our special on affordable housing here in Ashland. This is Around the Clock. We look forward to seeing you at our next show.